Starting the recording, and we are running for the evening. Let's get that. We are. Right. Good evening, everybody. Happy Thursday night. I'm Andrea Miller. I am going to be your host for the evening. And this is another installment of Road to the Midterms. I really call it Through the Rural South, but tonight we're going to be talking about the urban South because we're going to be talking about Richmond, Virginia. So our organization is the Center for Common Ground, and we are Virginia based. So these democracy centers are basically in my hometown. Because we are a 501c3, that means we are nonpartisan. So there will be no talking about Democrats or Republicans here. We're nonpartisan. We run 4 campaigns: Reclaim Our Vote, Democracy Centers, Vote Equality, and we also have an internship program, Students for Justice. And our internship program will be beginning again in late August, early September. It is paid internships. And right now, I know we are looking to recruit interns from North Carolina because we will be doing a lot of work in North Carolina this year and also in 2022. We also do civic education work at both the federal and the state level. And I will have some updates on federal legislation later on in this presentation. So our agenda tonight: the Virginia 2021 election. It's May. Our primaries will be next month. Federal, state legislation. And when we get all that done, then we will spend the rest of the evening looking at the newest onboarding of the Richmond Democracy Center. Now, in Virginia, right now, texting and phone banks are running. We have already texted 150,000 Virginia voters. Our texting partner is State Voices. There are still 150,000 voters left to text. You can sign up to text on our website, centerforcommonground.org/texting. If you need a refresher on using Spoke or anything else, there will be instructions on the website. You'll be able to contact Catherine Hunt, and she will get you started. And as I mentioned, in Virginia, our primary is on June 8th, and the voters started early voting on April 23rd. Now, our Democracy Center will not be open by the primary, but it will be open for the November general. All right, 2021 federal legislative priorities. As you know, the For the People Act has already passed the US House and it is in the Senate. We are waiting for the introduction of the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, and DC statehood has currently passed the House. I don't know how many people are aware, but right now, the holdup for the People Act and all of our other democracy legislation in the Senate is Senator Joe Manchin and Senator Kristen Sinema. Senator Sinema is in Arizona. Senator Manchin is in West Virginia. Senator Manchin of West Virginia, along with Senator Lisa Murkowski, circulated a Dear Colleague letter a few days ago, and that Dear Colleague letter is causing quite a bit of heartburn. In that letter, they both voiced support for the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, which technically is simply a reauthorization of the 1965 Civil Rights Act. But they are not expressing support for S1, the For the People Act. So for all of you who belong to other groups, if any people in your group ask you about this, here is your official answer. This is why we must have both the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. It is not one or the other. And the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act is not the stronger of the two bills. Now, why do we need the For the People Act? As most people know, more than 400 voter suppression bills have been introduced in 47 states. So the For the People Act will overturn much of that bad state legislation. The other thing about the For the People Act is it creates a federal baseline for how federal elections must be run. All states will be required to have 15 days of early voting. Doesn't impact Virginia because Virginia has 45 days, but it would impact states like South Carolina, Alabama, and Mississippi, who do not have early voting. It also says that all states will have no excuse absentee voting. And if you remember from previous iterations of this, Georgia was attempting to end no excuse absentee voting. Thanks to all the actions that we took, they were unsuccessful, but it didn't stop them from trying. And then the For the People Act also has a built-in Democracy Restoration Act. And the southern states were all over the map this year on restoration of rights and when people with past felony convictions would be able to get their voting rights back. And now remember, in 2018, the state of Florida passed legislation. Actually, it was a constitutional amendment where they basically said upon release from prison, people will be able to get their voting rights back. And then the Florida legislature immediately turned and passed a law that said, nah, they can't get their voting rights back until they paid their fines and fees and restitution. So that is what the For the People Act does. There is nothing in the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act that A, accomplishes any of those things, or B, overturns any existing state law that was passed this year that outlaws any of these things. Now, what the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act does is it provides a new formula for pre-clearance. When in Holder versus, and I can't remember whom, Holder versus whomever it was versus, they struck down Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act. We were expecting them to literally remove preclearance. They didn't remove preclearance, they removed the formula whereby they determined what states were going to be under preclearance. What is preclearance? Preclearance basically says, state, if you are going to introduce a law that impacts elections, you are going to have to clear that through the Department of Justice first. Again, it does not go back and undo legislation that has already been passed. This is future legislation. In other words, if this had been in place in the first place, then the states would not have been able to introduce this legislation. So very, very, very important thing to understand. Now, what I will say is based on all the legislation that 47 states have introduced, Senator Manchin and Senator Murkowski are suggesting that all 50 states be placed under preclearance so that at no point will we ever see this collection of very bad voter suppression legislation again. So hopefully that was a clear enough explanation of why we need both bills. Now, on this particular slide, there are links to a lot of information. We now have a volunteer dashboard where you can get information about volunteering. Now, our organization is Center for Common Ground. So whenever you see anything that's CFCG, that's Center for Common Ground. So bit.ly/CFCG-volunteer-dashboard. You can always get a listing of our upcoming events at bit.ly/CFCG-events. If you phone bank or want to see what phone banks do we currently have running, you can go to our website and you can visit Phone Bank Central. And there you'll be able to not only see what phone banks we have, you will be able to join a training for the phone bank. You will be able to actually join a phone bank. Postcard Home has been reworked. So when you visit Postcard Home, centerforcommonground.org/postcards, you will be able to see all of our current postcard activities. And we now have voter letters up and running. What's voter letters? Voter letters is our new software where it makes it self-service for postcard writers to go to voter letters and to choose what postcard campaign they want to be a part of, and then to order or request the names and scripts that will be downloaded and emailed to them so they can download it. And then, as I mentioned before, we currently have a texting campaign going on for Virginia voters, letting them know that we have early voting, and that campaign is going on now. And there will be more information at centerforcommonground.org/texting. Now, next week, we will be doing a presentation called Southern Voices. So we rotate between Road to the Midterms and then Southern Voices. My board member, Dr. Gabriela Limos, will be the moderator for that discussion, and it'll really be a discussion between Gabby and Dr. Victoria Di Francesca Soto, who is in the state of Texas, and they will be talking about what happened in Texas with Hispanic voters. Was that a one-off? Is that permanent? And what will we be able to do? And is Texas a state where people are going to want to invest their time? And my answer is yes, Texas is definitely a state because we have so many voters in Texas who, while they are able to vote, they don't take advantage of their ability to vote. And in Texas, they are definitely a state where if you do not use your ability to vote, you will lose it. All right. And now I have been excited about this all week because this is right in my backyard. I want to introduce you to the leadership of the soon to be open Richmond Democracy Center. I talk to Frank almost every day. Frank is a social entrepreneur. He's a certified financial literacy instructor and founder of the Social Education for Economic Development Initiative, otherwise known as Seed for All. And that group really works to help eliminate the whole cycle of poverty and the barriers to growth for low and moderate income people of color. He serves as co-chair of the Reparations Circle for the Richmond chapter of Coming to the Table. And that organization works on both sides of the color line on facilitated conversations on race relations. So I'm going to stop sharing and I am going to invite you, Frank, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you all for joining us and everyone for supporting us here in the Richmond Democracy Center. We are so elated to have this partnership with the Center for Common Ground. Andrea has been so supportive and so insightful with being able to provide us with the resources that we need to be able to inform and educate our communities of color here in Richmond. One of the things that I want everyone to know about me is that I was born and raised in Farmville, Virginia, Prince Edward County, a school with a deep history of segregation and education. My parents both were affected by the school closing in '59, and one of those cases led to Brown versus Board of Education ruling, an historic landmark ruling I'm sure that everyone is familiar with. My mother and my father had very different views about the government and the decisions that were made about how it affected individuals of color. My mother is someone who has been involved in the school system since the school closing. And the two things that she instilled in me from those experiences that she had was, one, the importance of education. Once you have it, it cannot be taken away from you unless someone knocks you over the head and you have amnesia, you may lose part of it, but even some of it is still there. And the other important piece that she taught me was that what happened to her and the individuals that closed the school and forced individuals to just live a life of turmoil and trauma because of the school closing was that wasn't done by every white person, and not every white person should be held accountable. I think with that knowledge and that understanding, it really helped me create a foundation for bringing people and communities together. One of the things that I wanted to do with the SEED initiative is look at the life that I lived, that my parents lived, and that other generations, as a result of the school closing in Virginia and other states as well, how that infected us over a long period of time. The Confederacy, Virginia's the home of the Confederacy. Virginia's the home of the first slave ship. It has a very historic history um, past. And some of those things are very traumatizing. One of the things that we wanted to do was come up with solutions. How can we start to change the narrative? How can we start to reverse some of the negative impacts of the legacy of slavery, the legacy of segregation, the legacy of just being a part of a system that excludes Black and Brown? We have been working to put together groups of organizations who have been previously working in silos to come together to form a collective, to be able to use our visions, our passions, our collective experience to be able to provide what we have been doing, should have been doing a long time ago, um, bringing an economic development floor for communities of color. One of the things that the legacy of Virginia and slavery and all of its history has left is a huge void in leadership and the ability for us to create an infrastructure, for us to be able to access the resources and the information that we need. Education and training and being prepared for a 21st century economy, the transition of wealth that's coming down the pipeline, all the things that we need to be informed about. We did not have a vehicle, a means to do that. When I came to Richmond, I knew that there were organizations that were working on these things, and I knew that there were individuals that were making a great difference in this community. What I wanted to see us do was come together and really put all of our resources together. And so for me, what I did was I sought out the most premier resource manager in the city, Reverend Gary Callis, who has the Children of Light ministry. This brother has been working in the communities for over 20 years, helping not just youths, but adults and families, the homeless populations, the substance abuse population, the dropout population, and his ties with the school system and everything that he's been trying to accomplish and push forward as far as economic growth for communities of color was right in line with what we were trying to do as far as being able to provide training for employability, for entrepreneurship, and for financial education. We want to be able to create investment opportunities and job opportunities, and even create businesses, help being able to provide those services and provide that understanding of a framework that we could create here in Virginia. In doing that, we recognized that there was a great need for awareness of not just the possibility of the opportunities that we could create, but also what's happening in the world, what's happening in our state, what are these legislative issues that are going to affect our kitchen table issues, rather. What is going to hit us in our pockets? What is it that we need to be focused on? And so for us, it was a natural fit for us to be able to work with the Center for Common Ground to establish a democracy center here in Richmond, so that we could not only use these resources that we had to inform, educate, and train on all of the economic development initiatives that we had going forth, but also get them civically educated, get them engaged in a way that their vote counted and they understood that they were a part of this process. And so what we were able to do with Andrea's help and with Roxanne and many others with the Center for Common Ground, we were able to marry the Resource Center, the Children of Light Resource Center, and the Democracy Center together in a way that we could create a holistic approach to providing resources, training, and civic engagement in a way that we don't think has ever been done here in Richmond before. What we're doing is revolutionary, it's progressive, but it's not rebuilding the wheel. All we're doing is using what works. We recognize there are programs, there are organizations that are doing similar work. We should be working together. The Resource Centers gives us a headquarters to do that. It gives us an opportunity to bring people to us, to be able to create events and engagement with other civic leaders, community leaders, and actually the community itself, giving them an opportunity to get access, not just to those leaders, but to the information that they are, the platforms that they are standing on. What are they going to do for you? What are they going to do for your community? How can you talk to them and hold them accountable after they've been elected? All these things we feel like are part of economic development. Democracy and financial literacy, to me, affect every aspect of every facet of our lives. How we work together succinctly to make those things part of a system that uplifts our people, that gives them an economic development floor to stand on, to build businesses, to build financial stability, to reach their full potential. We have an opportunity right now to do that here in Virginia. As progressive as this state is, right in this moment in time, there are specific actions and initiatives that we can focus on. Andrea listed a number of them, but we are really able now, I think, with the help of the Center for Common Ground, to provide the type of outreach to the communities, to provide the type of civic education, to provide the type of social resources, social services and resources that the community offers, and being able to do that in a very holistic and impactful way. So with that being said, I want Reverend Callis to be able to talk about our vision for the Resource Center and for the Democracy Center. He has been doing a fabulous job with pulling together a number of community organizers to come to the Resource Center and help us do some cleanup, help us do some work around getting the word out that the Democracy Center and the Resource Center will be up and running here soon. He's been doing some fabulous work with getting in touch with the school system here in Richmond, as well as some of the city council members and even some of the state legislators, inviting them to be a part of the Democracy Center, be a part of the economic growth movement for people of color. We know that we can do this, and we have been making an impact every day, and we can be stronger when we grow together. And that's what we're looking to do. So with that being said, Gary, I would love for you to be able to tell them more about your work here in Richmond, the Democracy Center, and what we have in store for our communities in Richmond.
Frank, thank you, man. For all of you that have not met me, I'm a highly motivated kind of guy. They say I'm enthusiastic. I'll take that. I'll take the word enthusiastic as a Greek compound word meaning in theos, meaning one in God. If you take your cell phone and you put it on the wall and you start to charge it, you see the little beeper just going up, right? Well, imagine if you're plugged into God all day long. Well, if you do that, you got me. People call me the Energizer Bunny. Well, real quick, my name is Reverend Gary Callis, and I am the founder and former of the Children of Light Foundation and the Children of Light Ministries. I started the Children of Light back in 1998, more or less because I saw a need inside our community where our kids actually needed somebody to come in and show them their worth. And you sit back and say, their worth? Yes, their worth. One of the things that we never teach our kids, or we never even teach ourselves, is how to love ourselves. We've been taught to love everything, but we never taught how to love ourselves. Once you begin to love yourself, then you understand your worth. Once you understand your worth, then you understand what you need to do to invest in yourself. So what I'm trying to do is encourage our people to learn how to invest in themselves. So when I met Frank, a gentleman is telling me that he's into financial literacy, I'm like, okay, this seems like a perfect match already. When I met Frank, it's like I'd known this guy all my life. It's like, I don't know where he came from, but I praise God that I met him. But with all that being said, I'm the oldest of 70 foster children. And in my lifetime, I'm gonna tell you right now, we didn't always have food to eat. My dad always made a way. My mom always made a way. But sometimes, you know, in looking back on it, I praise God and thank God for those experiences. Because now when I'm dealing with people that are in need, I understand where they're coming from. I'm not looking at them with pity. I'm not looking at them looking down on them or whatever. I'm understanding exactly what it means to be in a situation where you have to survive. So what I want to do is put together the infrastructure of economic development that we need as a people in order for us to move from slavery to a people that was being set free to a people that's now independent. When Frank introduced me to Andrea and says, Gary, look, I think this is a move for us right here. I think this is the end right here that we really need. Being able to teach our people what the importance of voting, the importance of their voice. I'm like, okay, Frank, I'll bite. I'll see what this looks like. So when I got on the phone with Roxanne the first time, I was so highly motivated by what she had said to me. Her thing was, Centers for Common Ground. We are going to be the voice of the people that we represent. I'm like, okay, I've been that voice for my people for 22 years already. So you mean to tell me you're going to actually give me a platform to speak from with a group of people saying, okay, we'll back you up on it? I'll do it. What do we have to do to make this work? So as Frank had said, I'm tied inside of every corner of Richmond. I'm not tied into the politicians to be a politician. I'm tied into them for their resources. I want the things from the top to come to the bottom. We have to learn, and then when it comes to the bottom, we have to know what to do with it. So from the advent of slavery, the first thing that Abraham Lincoln said, 40 acres and a mule. Why? Why 40 acres and a mule? Because the first thing your people need to do is be able to feed themselves to be independent. Well, unfortunately for us, we have not gotten to that position yet. But here's the thing. Once we start educating people as to what we need in order for us to move from point A to point B, and then we invite everybody along for the ride, I'm gonna tell you right now, you better put your seatbelts on because the rocket ship is taking off. We're not playing no more. We're not on our knees begging. We don't have our hands out saying, please, sir, can we have some more? The Oliver Twist is over. It's gone. All right? So the days of us sitting back, being quiet, not speaking, that's done. Right now, it's time for us to understand, first and foremost, that nobody can solve these woes, these issues we're having by ourselves. It's going to take, I'm going to use Frank's word. His word is the collaborative. All right, I'll roll with that. We're going to use this collaborative. We're going to use our combined resources and bring those resources together and then work together as a community to heal the community. There's no way that any one person can do it. There's no any one organization can do it. But if we have a plan, we can make it happen. Now, I don't know about you all, and y'all can tell from my enthusiasm how I'm talking, I got a plan. I've been trying to work this plan. I've been working this plan for 22 years. And right now, I'm coming off from under the rock and I'm throwing the plan out there. And for anybody that's ready to rock and roll, let's make it happen. Andrea, I praise God for you. Thank you for bringing me to the team. Thank you for bringing the resources to us. Thank you for bringing the Democracy Center of Virginia to Virginia so that now the people in our area can now have a voice. They can now be educated on what their voice actually can do and what their voice actually means. Again, my first thing is bringing value and worth to the people. So now you understand who you are. Looking at the slide right now that Andrea just popped up, that's the outside of the building. I'm glad she did that. If you look at the building, it looks all beat up and dilapidated. I like it like that. And the reason it's that way is the people that are running to, that are in the street, that are on drugs, that are just getting out for reentry, that are broken, beaten, battered. These people look like this building on the outside. But when you walk on the inside of the building, you're going to see something that looks good, something where people are going to work, people are doing something great. I took Stephanie Rizzi who is the 5th district school board member with me today, into the building. When she looked on the outside, you could see her face looking around. It's like, wow, this looks kind of beat down. But when I opened the door and she went in, the first thing she said, just like everybody else, is, wow, this looks nice. See, once folks walk in the room and they say it looks nice, see, this is how people are. They might be beaten and broken on the outside, but on the inside, they're good people, just needing an opportunity, just needing a chance for somebody to say, I've got faith in you. I've got faith in you. I've got faith in you. And now we're going to steal your own sense of self-worth so that you yourself can build yourself up like we built this building up, and then we can be a pillar. Even though this building is called the Children of Light Resource Center, I've dubbed it the Lighthouse. We are the shining light in the community to guide people on the path of self-sufficiency and independence. So I'm not going to be like Frank. Frank, I don't know where Frank gets it from. This guy can just sit back and goes on. Though I'm a minister, I get to the point. And I don't keep talking if I don't have to. Right now, you're looking at those 3 little boys right there on that picture. Those 3 little boys, if you look at them real carefully, 2 years ago, they were all straight F students. All 3 of them right now are Scholar Roll students. All 3 of them. The one in the middle, hey Frank, he just got Michael Times Award for entrepreneurship. That young brother in the middle just started his own lawn care business. He calls it Monster Mowers, right? So the whole community came together and bought this guy his weed eater, his motor, his mower, his blower, and this guy just got a grant from Michael Time to where now he can get his business up and running. So what I'm going to do for him is set him up with city contracts, because the vacant properties around the city has overgrowth, tall grass, all kinds of things. And I'm going to give him that contract so that he can go out, cut those grass, and start making his money. Okay? This is what it's all about. Being able to teach our people their worth. He understood that his worth wasn't just going to school every day. His worth wasn't just being in an impoverished neighborhood and being kicked around every day. He felt that his worth was in himself. And now that he has valued himself, now he can charge everybody for what he knows and for what he does. He can now make his own money. I'm gonna leave all of you with this thought. When I'm out in the street every day, I see a penny on the ground. When I see a penny, I'm gonna pick it up because it's God's small blessing from me. A friend of mine said to me, but Gary, you've got money. Leave that penny on the ground to be a blessing for somebody else. Oh no. See, when God put a blessing out there, that blessing is for me. Regardless of how much money I got, I know that God has more for me. So I'm saying this to all of you. As you are receiving your blessings, always know, share your blessing, but there's always another one for you. Just keep on picking up those pennies, because if you see the small blessing, trust and believe your eyes will be open for the larger ones. Frank?
Thank you, Gary. Thank you so much, Reverend Callis. Now, as hard as it is to believe, we have got another speaker. And our next speaker, Mr. Marty Jewell, I have known Marty for years. Marty, you and I probably go back to 2006, 2007, when our dear friend Thomas Francis introduced you. So you've had Frank, you've had Reverend Callis talking about building Black wealth. Well, we understand this is something that is a really big pain point in the city of Richmond. So I believe in one of my previous talks, talked about Virginia being one of the states, actually probably the first southern state, to legalize recreational marijuana and to do a Marijuana Justice Act, where we didn't just legalize it. Ultimately, the people who have been incarcerated for simple use will be released, and the taxation money that they receive will move back into the community. Well, Marty is the board chair of the Cannabis Equity Coalition of Virginia, and their goal is to educate the public about the push to legalize marijuana and how that legalization will impact families, communities, and institutions. I know Marty also as a member of the Richmond Crusade for Voters, an organization that goes back to the 1960s. And that organization was designed to help Richmond Black citizens pass the literacy test. They paid their poll taxes, and they also taught the Constitution so that people would be able to register and vote. Marty is a former Richmond City Council member, and he understands the workings of the city of Richmond from the inside. Marty is, how do I put this? Very, very outspoken on city council. So when Marty Jewell felt that the community was not getting a fair shake, you never had to worry about Marty Jewell standing down. Marty Jewell always stood up for his community. So one of the goals that we have is Marty wants the governor to increase the tax revenue from 30 to 50% that is set aside for Black and Brown communities in Virginia. And he wants to create an equity community Reinvestment Fund. So Marty, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to ask you to unmute because you are still muted. So that little button over on the bottom left. There you go.
You
are
screen
unmuted.
shows unmuted. Yes. Thank you, Andrea. And thank those two gentlemen who just spoke before me. Magnificent gentlemen who are as active as they are enthused. I've been hopelessly political all my life. And some folks say that, politics, ooh, well, somebody's got to do it. And my point is that I know where all the dead bodies are in this city and half of the state. And I've earned a lot of goodwill and such that I ain't got any money, but the goodwill gets me money. I got a rich brother who's going to help me build what I call Maggie's Village Development Fund. And the fact of the matter is that marijuana bill, a lot of folks didn't catch it, is a landmark piece of legislation. Just like the Civil Rights Act of '64, prior to which Black folk were in apartheid. That bill passed, and at least in relative terms, we can declare ourselves first-class citizens. But there was never a pool of money to help repair the harms. And then came the Voting Rights Act a year later. We can now vote early and vote often, as the joke goes. But there was never a pool of money that we can begin to make repair. This is landmark any way you cut it, because it puts aside 30% of the gross revenue, and there's going to be a 21% surcharge on all marijuana sales. And we're trying to get that number to 50%. Just 2 weeks before Virginia's bill was passed, New Jersey passed theirs with 70% of tax revenue going to their community reinvestment fund. And so meanwhile, I think Gary said it clearly. Black folk have got to build wealth. And I'm talking community weight operations. The Pew Research Center a few years ago to the COVID crash, gave a report showing that Black folk lost 45% of our businesses and 50% of our collective wealth. And the last ethnic group to however, 10 years later, so we get this monster COVID that slaps us back again in the effort towards closing the equity gap in economics. And so we got to struck ourselves with, and I've got what's called Maggie's Village Development Fund to build community wealth from the bottom up. And it's not my plan, believe it or not. This was Ms. Maggie Walker 100 years ago, who led her cohort in creating the largest Black economy in the South 100 years ago. And that structure is still available to us, and we've got to work it. And we've already got Virginia Union University, my alma mater, School of Business, Dean of School of Business, who says, I want to partner with you. We can bring on the history department, the education department, as well as the School of Theology to join with us and build a model, assuming it's successful in a short period of time. We can replicate this model through HBCUs all across the country because they're located in places just like Richmond, Virginia. We've got 132 municipalities in Virginia. I challenge anybody to show me one of those 132 that can clearly see that Black folk are included in the economic mainstream. That's a travesty. It's a travesty, but it ain't going to change until we make it change. And that is along with the that all of the experts are telling us that our middle class today is shrinking, our working class is struggling, and our poor are in free fall. We're in trouble. And so it's a huge task, and until they pour dirt on me, I intend to lead in building Black community. Well, when Andrea told me about this democracy center, I said, the good Lord sent an angel, because in fact, it fits so totally tightly with the Richmond Crusade for Voters. There was a time when we were founded in 1956, 2 years after Brown. And we were founded because white folks, the NAACP was trying to integrate the schools. And what got mad about it, and they see our membership rolls. Well, when they saw our membership rolls, they were able to know who was in the membership, and they started taking out reprisals on their help, their laborers on and they started firing them off their jobs. They started attacking them in any kind of way. So the crusade was founded, structured in such a way that those membership rolls would not be made public. They then, NAACP came in, the Baptist Ministers Conference came in, all under one umbrella. All of our community-based organizations became a part of under that umbrella, and enormous progress was made. There ain't an organization in this town that as a standalone can move the needle one way towards progress. We can only do it working together, and that history is there. Those connections are there, and the crusade has voted unanimously to join with the Democracy Center. We can do this all over again. Meanwhile, we've got an opportunity. We've got an opportunity. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense, y'all. And so that plan begins with building our own United Way. It shouldn't take 50 years to realize that you can't get freedom for free. And so we're going to build a capital fund to begin financing our own freedom. And given the way the economy through the rich folk at the 10% level have flipped this economy such that all the wealth floats to the top, then there's no way we can correct that except working down at the bottom and making those corrections here. And so you can't do it until you collaborate, nor can you do it unless you structure yourself to win. I won't go on and on with this. I just thank God for the Democracy Center. It gives us a real shot at fixing what's broke. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marty. I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to ask Frank to join us. We are working on an internet project. I think most of you know that Deepak Puri is on our board, and he is a retired Silicon Valley engineer. Well, one of the things that we have kind of ended up doing with the Democracy Centers is we found ourselves going into the Wi-Fi hotspot business because no one else was willing to help low-income communities immediately, as in a couple of weeks, get Wi-Fi. So in the city of Richmond, we've got 6 low-income housing projects. There is plenty of broadband in Richmond. Lack of broadband isn't a problem, but lack of money to be able to afford the broadband is. So DPAC is currently providing Wi-Fi hotspots with special software so that we configure them very much like you jumping on Wi-Fi. If you were at an airport, it wants your name, it wants your email address. But then we go one step further. We deliver ads, videos, whatever the Democracy Center wants people to see, and then they're able to use the Wi-Fi for free. So we're hoping to start off with 2 units. So Frank, go ahead and add to that.
Yes, thank you, Andrea. So you've heard Reverend Callis and Marty talk about the many challenges that we face here in Richmond, Virginia. One of them, Andrea has pointed out, is the digital divide. How do we get the information that we are trying to, and the resources that we are trying to provide for these communities to them in a way that does not cost them anything, right? We are trying to remove the barriers. This is an opportunity for us to start a pilot program. There's 6 courts. One of these units would be able to provide high-speed internet to 40 individuals. It's a start. It's a way for us to be able to go into these communities, get them engaged in a way that allows them to access the internet for all the purposes that they need for their improvement of life, whether it's getting access to information about healthcare, whether it's getting access to information about job opportunities, whether it's getting information and access to information about legislative actions that are taking place, as we've noted some here, very worthy causes that people need to be informed about. This would give us an opportunity to, 1, capture that data in one place, and 2, disseminate that information all under the same hub. We are able to go into these communities, sign people up, and at the same time, as they're signing up, just like Andrew said, they'll have a landing page that they'll come visit. It'll have information about the Democracy Center, the events that we are having, the town halls that we are creating and establishing, the resources and training opportunities that we are creating to develop that economic floor that Marty and Reverend Callis have been working on for decades. Together, we know that we can do this. We have individuals in the courts that are willing to help us get into these homes, talk to the people. Reverend Callis has been doing this for a number of years. He has a group of individuals around him that will also help us get inside of these courts, build the trust, or continue adding to the trust that they've already established in a way that will ensure that we can give them the information that they need to make informed decisions about their well-being, about their financial health, and about their physical health, and definitely about their political health. Because if we cannot educate them on how to not only create these changes, but to sustain these changes and hold these officials accountable, then we will be continuing to lose ground. With one of these units, again, we can do 40 people. It costs us about $2,000 to do. We're trying to do at least 2 courts. So that would be about $4,000. We would love to be able to get one into each court just to start off, but we'll start where we can. We'll do what we can, as we've always been doing, with the resources that we have available until more resources come forth. But we would love your help. We would love your support, because we know the impact that this will make. It will tie all of these strings together, whether it's from resources or whether it's from Democracy Center information. We'll be able to provide the collective and collaborative spirit of uplifting our people and creating that economic ground floor that we've been trying to do successfully. We can do it effectively now and successfully with the help of the Center for Common Ground and your support. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you all for joining us. And we do appreciate all of the work that you have done and continue to do.
All right. Thank you, Frank. So as we've said, we have a goal that we would love to raise $4,000 tonight to buy 2 of the units to go into 2 of the 6 courts. Deepak will work with us and teach us how to get them programmed, because as I said, they're very much like an airport unit. So people who need the free internet, every time they want to sign on, there's that sign up form, and then watch this video, go to this page, take a look at this. Are you registered to vote? Check your voting registration. And when they get done doing those things, now the free internet is theirs. So again, nothing in life is truly free, but when you don't have money, what we're asking for is just a moment of your time so we can educate you about something that's probably very, very important for you to know. And in these low-income housing courts, these are the hardest people to reach. These are the folks who tend to be unregistered, often because they move around a lot. These are the folks who don't have any phone numbers in van, so we can't call them. So we're using this as a way to have people self-identify, and then we can reach them. Now, Gary and Marty and Frank, I want you to meet Gabe Wheaton. And Gabriel is our phone bank leader. And Gabe will also be responsible for working with me when we create canvases, and people from the democracy centers are going out and they're canvassing. So Gabe, I'm very excited to introduce you to the Richmond team.
It's an honor. We are the phone bank team here is really just a bunch of dedicated, incredible volunteers. And we're really here to serve whatever your needs are. Sometimes, that might be like setting up smaller operations where you want to train some local volunteers to call for things, but also, we can harness the full abilities of our national size and have a bunch of volunteers from out of state making these calls too. So it can totally scalable. Definitely looking forward to maybe integrating like the data we're getting from these Wi-Fi hotspots with phone banks. So there are a lot of cool combinations that we have that we can really draw upon, I think, from the partnership of having these national resources and just existing to serve whatever it is your local needs are.
And Gabe, thank you so very, 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 very much. And in addition to setting up the phone banks, one of the things that we do to train our volunteers is we have trainings very, very frequently, so that if people have never used digital phone banks, they're used to people giving them paper. We don't use paper. We are data driven. Then there is almost always a phone bank where you can go to, where there are trainers that will make sure you know how this operates.
Yeah, I wanted to give a shout out also to our upcoming interfaith phone bank series that Roxanne Rucker is leading. It's going to be over the course of the next 3 Tuesdays, I believe, and possibly more after that. But yeah, maybe is Roxanne here? Maybe
She was.
But yeah, so that's really exciting. That's just one example of the ongoing. We have a whole calendar of ongoing trainings that are happening. We've got basically at least one happening every day of the week, and guided phone banks for all of our existing projects. And part of what we do also is communicate what your needs are for your phone banks to people in other communities, to all of our volunteers, to try and get as many people inspired to make calls for your local issues. And so definitely looking forward to working with you on messaging, and any way that we can make it clear how important like local Richmond issues are to our national volunteer base, which is quite large.
All right, great. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen for just a moment, and I'm actually going to get it on the right page. So I also want to say welcome to Anthony Hall from the Florence Democracy Center, and to EC, who will be one of the leaders when the Alabama Democracy Centers come on board. So this is our website, and here are the Virginia phone banks. So in Virginia, we are getting out the vote. There's information. We've got getting started. Here are the links to the phone banks. And then there are various guides and things that you can read about. If you want to know more about, well, what is this Virginia Get Out the Vote campaign about, then you can go to this page and you can read about what we have done, important election dates. Again, everything that we do is designed to empower the voter and make sure that the voter has information that they need. So, all right, we are getting there. We have raised almost $700 tonight. We've got a small group. We'll do the rest on email. So, Gabe, thank you. I'm going to thank Reverend Gary and Frank and Marty for joining us. I cannot wait to join you when we actually have our opening day and we open the Democracy Center. So